Get ready, Colonel.
All right, good morning. My name is Chisun Ishii, Chairperson of the Authority. I'd like to call to order the August 2nd, 2023 public hearing of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. And the time is now 9:00 a.m.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's public hearing both virtually on Zoom and in person. The Zoom link details were included in the public hearing notice. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom or at the physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor, boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813. The hearing is also being live streamed on HCD's YouTube page. The HCD communications staff is hosting the Zoom portion of the hearing. Once this public hearing begins, everyone will be muted for clearer audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourselves to speak. It is important that all individuals clearly state their name each time prior to speaking. This is a public, in-person, and virtual public hearing, so to prevent any distractions, if you are attending virtually and you are not a board member, staff member, or HCD's Attorney General, please turn off your video during the meeting. If you are providing verbal public testimony, your name will be called accordingly. If you're attending in person, when your name is called, please come to the front of the room. And if you're attending virtually, please turn your video on only while providing your testimony. In either case, please clearly state your name and affiliation and proceed with your testimony. In accordance with section 92-3.7C Hawaii Revised Statutes, if the authority's connection for the remote meeting is lost, the hearing will be recessed until the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the hearing will be reconvened tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the same physical location and virtual Zoom link as today's hearing. Thank you. Chair.
Let the record reflect the following Kaka'ako members are present. Vice Chair Higa.
Present.
Member Apo.
Present.
Member Miranda Johnson.
Present.
Member Anderson.
Present.
Member Hirai. Present. Member Evans.
Present.
And Member Sakota.
Present.
Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. Individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted to provide testimony respectively. Will the counsel for the applicant make their appearance at this time?
Hi, good morning, Chair Ishii, Executive Director Nakamoto, HCD staff, and members of the authority, Brian Kang and Vanessa Wen, appearing on behalf of applicant Victoria Boyd Limited on both projects, Block C and Block E.
Good morning, Council. Today's hearing on development permit numbers KK 23-037 and KK 23-03 is being held in accordance with Hawaii Revised Statute section 206E 5.6 subchapter 3 of the Hawaii Administrative Rules, chapter 219 of Title 15, and the vested Kaka'ako Malpa Area Rules HAR chapter 15-22. The nature of today's public hearing is to allow the applicant to present the proposed modification request as provided in section 15-22-120 of the vested rules regarding the podium height and view corridor setback, and to provide the general public with the opportunity to present oral and or written testimony. Victoria Ward Limited is the applicant for the proposed project. Development permit numbers KK 23-037 and KK 23-03. Applications: Ward Village Project Block 4, Projects 1 and 2, Block D and E. Tax map key number 12-3-005 and a portion of 006. Project location is 1200 Ala Moana Boulevard, Honolulu, Hawaii 96814. The modifications requested. The applicant is requesting the following modifications from the vested Malpa rules referred to as collectively as a modification request. The modification of the height of the parking and mixed-use podium from 45 to 65 feet. And A, an additional 12 feet for accessory use structures having a total area less than 15% of the parking and mixed-use podium roof area. And B, an additional 18 feet for structures that will house elevator machinery on the parking and mixed-use podium roof. And 2, modification of the view corridor setbacks along Alameda Boulevard for the parking and mixed-use podium. The application date is June 9th, 2023. The legal notice, a public hearing notice was published in the Honolulu Star Advertiser, Maui News, the Garden Isle, Hawaii Tribune Herald, and the West Hawaii Today on Thursday, June 14th, 2023. Chair?
Thank you. This is a hearing to consider the modification request by the applicant. Let me briefly explain our procedures for today's public hearing. The ACDA staff will first present its report summarizing the amendments requested in the development permit application. Following that presentation, we will receive the presentation of the applicant and then testimony from the public. Only members of the authority and the executive director will be permitted to ask any questions of the staff, applicant, or individuals providing testimony. Now, ACDA Kaka'ako Planning and Development Director Ryan Kam will present the staff's report. Right?
Hi, good morning, Chair. Good morning, Chair Ishii and staff members and board members. The staff report is in your packet and was uploaded for public review. I did want to acknowledge again the excellent work of HCA staff, planning staff, Ms. Janet Mikey Lau, who's here in the with us this morning, as well as Renee Reed, our admin. I did want to highlight just a few components and point out a few items from the application materials for the board members to consider. And we're pulling up the slides right now, just to point out a few things to orient.
That's good. That's good.
Okay. Okay, so just to again, just to refamiliarize you with the site. On this is the block between Kamakaua Street and the Oahe Street, the Queen Street extension. So on the left, you have the Diamond Head Plaza. In the center is Block D, and on the right is Block E. Again, the structure, the frontage for blocks D and E combined is about 69% of the entire block. And so the encroachment into the view corridor is almost 700 linear feet. So that's the yellow and purple blocks combined. Here's the west elevation view looking Diamond Head. Again, these are in the application materials. On the left is Block D, and on the right is Block E. Again, the podium height modification. So that's the first modification. That's the purple dash line. So you can see that that's the 45-foot line. Everything above that goes up to the 65 feet plus the podium height. Just the encroachment within the view corridor setback, that is the blue dash line. So you can see the angle line that goes up from Alameda Boulevard, angles at 45 degrees. And then the other thing I just wanted to point out is the podium is slightly higher in block D than Block E, the base podium. Just wanted to point out, this is the south elevation looking, showing the full massing along Almona Boulevard. Just to point out, the current ward center buildings are about 33 to 40 feet high. So again, this is quite a bit higher than that. You can see the applicant is using the architectural design to break up the massing of the facade. So the vertical articulation as well as a horizontal articulation. Also wanted to point out that the ground level activation is via linear park rather than the ward master plan. Again, the applicant is going to be also showing some of these renderings, but just wanted to point out the again, the articulation, the vertical and the horizontal bands. Also, this is a view on Almona Boulevard. You can see the linear park within the setback area. There's a sidewalk right along Almona Boulevard, and then the meandering path that leads up into the setback area. And again, this all connects to the Dillingham Plaza, the Diamond Head Plaza on the Eva side of the block. Along, this is the block E frontage. Again, the linear park, you can see does have some plaza spaces. And in the center, see the stairways kind of leading up from the street, from the sidewalk. And again, the meandering sidewalk. Again, some of the applicant, they're going to be presenting some of the inspirations of this linear park along Almona Boulevard. Section along Almona Boulevard, this is looking in the opposite direction. So this is looking at Eva, and this is again just to show the section showing this the linear park in the setback area. Again, there's an elevation grade change up to the building base flood the podium height. Sorry, the base floor elevation height, which is about 10 feet. So it's a rise of about 7 feet from Almona Boulevard. Again, the sidewalk on the left, right along the street. The meandering path coming in the center of the setback area, and there's a plaza with some stairs connecting at selected areas. Turning to Awash, and again, that one of the things that we did want to make sure is that this on block E, that this kind of meandering part connects up to the through the IBM building frontage area, and that it's all kind of one continuous section. Looking at Oahe Street, so this is the on the Malka side of the block. Just wanted to point out that again the elevation change here. Again, it's a 7 feet. The promenade. You have kind of the street sidewalk, landscaping, and then the elevated podium promenade. Here's a cross section. Again, this is looking at Eva, so you can see the Oahe Street on the right. You can see the sidewalk, and then the elevated, the retail promenade. Yeah. And then just a view from the Diamond Head Plaza. So this is looking back looking towards Diamond Head. You can see the park on the left, and you can see its integration. And the landscaping, and the linear park along Almona Boulevard. And then lastly, I just wanted to show the cross section of how the grade change is being accomplished. So again, from Kamakea Street on the left, rising up through the site, again, variety of paths, activations, up to the retail areas. And I think staff worked very closely with the applicant, and is to make sure that a lot of these spaces are activated. So the activation along the park and then also along the, in the Diamond Head Plaza. So a lot of features. Such as, benches, other kiosks. Sorry, not kiosks, pavilions and features like that. Again, the staff report, it's in your packets. Unless there's anything else to add, subject to your questions.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions on the staff report? Not, counsel for the applicant, please make your appearance and introduce your party.
Hi, good morning, Chair Shi, members of the authority and HCDA staff, Brian Kang and Vanessa Wen, appearing on behalf of the applicant Victoria Ward Limited on both applications. Good morning. Good morning.
Do you have any additional exhibits to admit?
Chair Shi, at this time, Victoria Ward has no further exhibits to admit at this time.
The authority acknowledges that there are no additional exhibits offered by the applicant, and we will proceed with the hearing. You may now call your first witness.
Thank you very much, Chair Shi. Our first witness today is Kaiulani Sodaro.
Good morning.
Morning.
Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to affirm that the testimony you will be providing is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Sodaro. Can you please state your name, position for the record, please?
Kaiulani Sodaro, Senior Vice President, Planning and Development.
Can you please briefly summarize the requested modifications for blocks D and E?
Victoria Ward Limited is requesting 2 modifications to the vested rules for blocks D and block E podiums. First, to increase the podium heights from 45 to 65 feet. And second, to accommodate a continuous building facade on the platforms above 20 feet instead of the 1-to-1 setback along the Ala Moana Boulevard View Corridor setback. Both modifications are described and contemplated by the Ward Master Plan, previously considered by HCDA in approving the master plan, and are also consistent and in alignment with other approvals in Ward Village and Kaka'ako, including Waiea, the Launiu, and the adjacent Alia project on Ala Moana Boulevard.
And what are the public benefits from the requested modification?
The modifications are essential to effectuating HCDA's vision and implementing the mixed-use live, work, play of the Ward Master Plan and the Mauka Area Plan, particularly within Land Block 4. The iconic IBM building on the Diamond Head end of Land Block 4 stands as a cherished part of the Honolulu skyline for all and holds an important symbolic connection with Kaka'ako's rich history. Although the master plan originally contemplated the replacement of the IBM building with a residential tower on Land Block 4, Victoria Ward made a concerted effort to instead preserve and improve this timeless example of Vladimir Osipov's vision of 20th century modern architecture. The IBM building stands at the gateway of Ward Village and the Mauka area, and the completely renovated building provides over 62,000 square feet of zoned office space, as well as space for community events. This cornerstone of Ward Village creates a 1-acre bookend to the eastern side of Land Block 4. On the Ewa end of Land Block 4, the approximate 1-acre Diamond Head Plaza Park will fulfill the vision of the Ward Master Plan to provide the 3rd major open space in Ward Village, inclusive of Kala'io Kukulai'eo Park near Ulana Ward Village, and the approximately 3.5-acre Victoria Ward Park in Central Ward Village. The Diamond Head Plaza Park will be a significant community amenity near the entrance to Ala Moana Beach Park, featuring lush landscaping, shaded seating areas and walking paths, and an outdoor dining plaza integrated with Block D. Accounting for these public and community benefits limits the developable area for Land Block 4. Because the IBM building and the Diamond Head Plaza Park collectively account for about 1/3 of the land block area. This requires the lots for Block D and Block E to be relatively compact, And each of the lots are the smallest lots along Ala Moana Boulevard within Ward Village. Each lot is also the minimum size allowed under the vested rules for the proposed height of each building. Therefore, the requested modifications, which allow additional volume within each podium, allow the bulk of the parking to be moved up and away from the street, and allow for greater flexibility in the podium facade design, as they are especially important to implement the significant pedestrian activation and design within each development of Land Block 4, including extensive ground floor retail, walking and gathering areas, and architecturally interesting and appropriately scaled facades. The public benefits arising from the additional volume and flexibility include strategically placed retail within arch-covered colonnades in Block D and Block E along Galwahi Street, as well as a food and beverage area in Block D overlooking an outdoor plaza within the Diamond Head Plaza Park. Block D also features an outdoor plaza along Galwahi Street with public art, while Block E incorporates a two-story pickup and drop-off area that also serves as a symbolic entry into the Galwahi Street pedestrian promenade area. The modifications, including the ability to provide a continuous facade along the podium, are also especially important in providing an engaging streetscape experience along Ala Moana Boulevard. As Executive Director Nakamoto mentioned at the presentation hearing, we'd also like to thank and acknowledge the HCDA staff for their helpful comments and suggestions during our conceptual development of the Ala Moana Boulevard streetscape along blocks D and E. The streetscape will include walking paths, the extension of the Indigenous Botanical Garden in front of the IBM building with appropriate signage, landscape pocket parks about the size of racquetball courts to serve as meeting, gathering, and resting areas, dog care stations, and extensive landscaping to provide a pleasant pedestrian experience while also complementing Ala Moana Park right across the street. The additional flexibility within the podium along Ala Moana Boulevard allows for an architectural design that evokes early 20th century Honolulu with a stone and plaster masonry facade, creative screening, and the appearance of a series of smaller linked buildings to enhance a pedestrian sense of scale along the boulevard. Other features, including extensive landscaping, pocket parks, planted berms, pathway and facade lighting, and seating niches, will further enhance the Ala Moana Boulevard streetscape. They will create interest and activation and encourage strolling and gathering along the boulevard.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dodaro. Have blocks D and E also considered climate change in connection with the design and siting of the development, including the podiums as well?
Yes. Stepping back for a moment to provide additional background, the 2008 Ward Neighborhood Master Plan included a section on sustainability, which proposed sustainable practices in the development of Ward Village. On page 101 of the master plan application, climate change was specifically and expressly identified as one of the drivers of Victoria Ward's sustainability framework, which includes site planning, materials, energy use, and water use. The plan noted that, quote, through a collaborative effort, environmentally sustainable elements in design, construction, residential and retail outreach and management practices will be incorporated, end quote. Recognition and incorporation of climate change and sustainability issues have been part of Ward Village from the very beginning of the neighborhood, and each project has considered sea level rise and other climate change impacts. Each project has incorporated sustainable practices to help mitigate against the efforts of climate change. These efforts are summarized in this slide and are also reflected in the designation of Ward Village as the only LEED Platinum Neighborhood Development Master Plan community in Hawaii, and recognized by the World Green Building Council as a notable case study for providing a community with social value combined with resilient infrastructure, including infrastructure that safeguards against wind and hurricanes and sustainable practices. Block D and E continue Victoria Ward Limited's practice of considering climate change impacts in connection with the design and siting of all new developments.
And moving to the new developments with respect to blocks D and E, can you please share with us additional details on how blocks D and E consider the impacts of climate change, sea level rise, and climate resilience.
As evidenced in the submittal of Block D and Block E's respective infrastructure availability reports, Appendix G for Block D and Appendix F for Block E, climate resiliency was considered in connection with the siting and design of both podiums, as well as in connection with the project's overall with respect to flooding, sea level rise, site drainage, and low impact development best practices. Appendix I for Block D and Exhibit E31 for Block E addresses windstorm impacts. The wind study letter notes that the study will include structural wind loads and cladding wind loads. Appendix C for Block D and Appendix B for Block E summarizes the LEED checklist, which considers sustainable sites criteria as well. Glenn Kuai's written testimony also notes that both projects' design and siting will comply with the base flood elevation of 10 feet, which will be above the projected sea level rise exposure, including site level planning, FEMA flood elevation requirements, and design solutions and best practices, including project weatherproofing of utility elements, water backflow preventer designs, and more. Another example of climate resiliency considered and incorporated into the design of both podiums are the ground floor pedestrian spaces in blocks D and E, facilitated by the modifications. The design of these spaces includes the easily accessible and visible colonnade retail along Oahe Street, which is elevated to accommodate FEMA and city flood mitigation requirements, and in turn addresses the projected sea level rise exposure.
Are the modifications for blocks D and E integrated into the overall planning for Land Block 4?
Yes, as further discussed by our witnesses and as contemplated by the Ward Master Plan, the requested modifications to Block D and Block E's podiums will also complement the Diamond Head Plaza Park and the IBM building on Land Block 4 and facilitate the vibrant, walkable, and engaging streetscape environment envisioned in this area of Ward Village. In closing, these projects will result in Ward Village delivering the following over the proposed benefits set forth in the Ward Master Plan. Upon completion of Ulana, a total of 1,222 reserved housing units will be provided, exceeding the required number by 53 units. Miles of pedestrian and bicycle networks will be expanded across Ward Village. The total area identified for public facilities dedication is over 360,000 square feet, or 11%, or 35,000 square feet more than the estimated to be required in the master plan. 52,000 square feet of open space is proposed in the Mahana Block D and Block E development permit applications, bringing the total open space proposed to 430,000 square feet, or 17.5% of the net developable area, exceeding the HCDA requirement by 75%. A preserved and revitalized IBM building included an architectural gateway element facing the Ala Moana Queen Lane gateway entry. And additional gateway elements will be constructed at the Ala Moana Ward Avenue, Ala Moana and Kamakee, and Ward Avenue and Haleakala entries, concurrent with adjacent mixed-use projects. Mahalo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Darrow. For the record, Mr. Darrow was referring to a slide presentation marked as Exhibit D-30, which is also identical to Exhibit E-30 during her testimony. Victoria Ward has no further questions for Ms. Darrow at this time, and she is available for any questions.
Thank you. Members or Executive Director, do you have any questions for this witness?
I do. It's Kevin Sakota. Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. Good morning, Kailani. Thank you so much for addressing those issues, because that was sort of weighing heavily on my mind with the issue of SB 1417. Can you actually give me the location of, there are some issues about, you mentioned about compensating for black backflow in the drainage systems, etc. I don't remember reading anything about that.
I'm happy to refer to the infrastructure availability report and then prior
Right.
Glenn Kwai's written testimony. The
Okay.
backflow preventer quote I mentioned is found in Glenn Kwai's written testimony. Member
Gotcha.
Sakota.
Okay. So one of the issues that I had a trouble with over the past, since the last meeting was just in terms of reading all the climate change and sea level rise and resiliency reports. And in going through the presentation materials, I mean, it seems like, the developer has addressed sea level rise in terms of just raising the level of the structure, right? What I couldn't find was sort of in the comments of the experts or the infrastructure experts, utility experts, was there addressment of sea level rise? So that's what I'm having trouble with, is that I don't want to see a beautiful building surrounded by, a flooded Hawaii street. And I'm looking for sort of confirmation or assurances, not to come up with a specific solution for it, but that it is recognized that it is a potential issue going forward. So while all the expert witness comments are there, I couldn't find really any specific comments concerning sea level rise and climate change and the impacts of that. So it would help me if you could direct me to those comments or provide additional comments so that we can put those comments into our considerations going forward.
Okay, I would like to just note the expert witnesses don't define the regulatory code requirements. Their testimony is confirming that the building design and site planning meets the regulatory requirements for all developers, not just us, as it comes to climate resiliency. And, the sea level riser obviously was not authored by any of our expert witnesses. Their testimony is to assure that these projects are subscribing to the regulatory requirements of climate resiliency and the engineering and site planning of the blocks in the building design.
Okay. I don't get that from reading the comments. I do get from those comments and the letters back and forth that they do meet sort of the base requirements for the project. So what I'm searching for is sort of just acknowledgement that if we do see like a 1 meter sea level rise or less, and let's say the water table in the area rises by less than that 1 meter over the next 5 or 10 years or whatever, that issue has been thought through, and that we won't have any drainage issues in the neighborhood or surrounding the buildings. We've seen some of it in other areas of Kaka'ako, so that's what's kind of generating my concern.
Was that a question, Member Sakota? Did you want?
That's my statement. I mean, that's for me to consider SB 1417. I mean, what Kailani has stated is that, well, the buildings meet all the basic requirements, infrastructure requirements. But what I'm looking for is a little bit more in terms of how do we think about climate change, sea level rise, and resiliency for not only the building, but the entire area surrounding the building in terms of drainage, sewer, and other infrastructure issues.
Understood. Yeah, that, I don't, we were sending emails back and forth in this discussion consideration, Member Sakota. I too have a question regarding the sea level rise. And I guess my question is, the study was done, from my understanding, the latest study was in 2019, I think it was the date. And has there been any consideration of, based on new data, on new facts, as far as climate change and the effects of sea water rise into consideration for this development?
The design of the land block and the site planning meets the codified regulatory definitions of being climate resilient and flood proofing as established by the state.
Right, but that
Yeah.
study was done, I think it was in 2017 or 2019. I have to get these, but so my question was, I think this is where we're challenged with as a board. We're not sure what the changes or potential changes has been since that particular study that occurred. And was any of that potentially taken into consideration in this planning and development of this?
So it sounds like a universal question to all contemplated development in the state of Hawaii right now. All that our designers can do is follow and, prescribe what the state that determines those definitions of being climate resilient are. And they're primarily wind, flooding, right, that we've talked about, sea level rise. And so we can attest, and our expert witnesses can attest, that the best information that is out there guiding design is being incorporated into our projects.
I understand that you're designing based on the current laws. I guess, was there any proactive discussion or look at?
I cannot opine on theoretical scenarios, sure.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for this witness? Board members, no. Okay, let me call your next witness.
Actually, Chair, if I may ask just a couple of follow-up questions to the witness based on the question that were raised. Mr. Dara, is it your understanding that Wilson Okamoto, in terms of its site level planning and its consideration of sea level rise, considered the entire site of Land Block 4, including blocks D, block E, as well as the Diamond Head Plaza?
Yeah,
And is it your understanding that Wilson Okamoto, in doing that, used the sea level rise viewer, which Wilson Okamoto had represented, was the current sea level viewer for purposes of determining sea level rise?
yes.
And in terms of the surrounding roadways for Land Block 4, in other words, Oahe Street and Ala Moana Boulevard, would it be your understanding that if there were to be a need to address sea level rise with respect to areas outside the site of Land Block 4, which is only the site being considered in this hearing, but aside from that, the surrounding roadways, would Victoria Ward have to work with the state as well as the city and county in addressing those issues outside of the site?
Yes, and it has been demonstrated in the past as well.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me call your next witness.
Thank you very much. Victoria Ward calls as its next witness, Tom Schnell.